All right, guys. Today I am very excited to talk with Casey White. Casey's a former and current, I guess, client of mine who I have not seen in, we were just talking, almost a year now since COVID started. But prior to that, I was seeing her pretty regularly for what started as frozen shoulder. I met you through Pat Flannery over at CrossFit there. And so we started working together and we continued to do some things. And I'll let Casey kind of explain the details, but we've worked together for a while. And, you know, just talking with Casey is always a pleasure because she has such an interesting perspective on life and things and her experiences. She always brings a unique opportunity, a unique perspective to what's happening. So I've been trying to get her to write a book for 3 years. And since she won't write a book, we're going to do a podcast.
Maybe someday, Nick, maybe someday.
I'm going to keep pushing.
Okay.
So you want to just give us a background on yourself and, the purpose of today's episode, we really want to dive into what you do with mental toughness because your mental approach to challenges, life, sports, athletics, is just, it's awesome to hear the way you think about things. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're doing with that.
Yeah, sure. It's great to be here, Nick, and talk to you. I missed you. It has been way too long. I've had to be very careful during this last year with COVID because I have cystic fibrosis, which is a genetic lung disease. I was diagnosed with CF at the age of 3. And at the time when I was diagnosed in 1982, the life expectancy for people with CF was in the teens. And it was like a devastating diagnosis for my family. But what was interesting is the doctor that diagnosed me told my parents to raise me to be a responsible adult, which was kind of a bold statement at the time because the life expectancy was so low. But she just felt like there was research on the horizon and that we should choose hope over fear. And that's what we did. So right now, I'm 41 years old, which feels like such a miracle, actually. And
I missed the birthday.
Yeah, well, I'm about to have another one in April, so yeah, I think you might not.
I remember 40 because 40 was a big deal, right? So I remember talking about 40.
Yeah, you probably missed my entire 41st year, but I'll be back. But yeah, I just feel so fortunate that I'm still alive and well, and I've benefited so much from advances in research that have been funded by the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. It hasn't been easy. I think when I first was coming to see you, I did come for a frozen shoulder, which I believe I got from having a PICC line for IV antibiotics. And there's always, I feel like every time I came in, there was some crazy thing that was happening. Like I was coughing up blood, or I had a fever, or
That first 6 months, I was like, there was the physical side of whatever we were going to work on. But then it was like, okay, what other complicating factor are we going to talk about today?
I know. It was a crazy time, actually. I think it was a time in my life where my health was taking up more and more space, and I had to retire from coaching. I was a high school girls lacrosse coach in Chagrin for 8 seasons, which I absolutely loved, but it just got to the point where it was too hard for my body, and my doctors were sort of like, we love your job, but if you want to stay on top of your health, you need to retire. So I did that, and it was tough. I really missed my team, and I sort of was trying to figure out what my identity was going to be. And in the meantime, I also wasn't feeling that well. So I really took that time to build my body back up, and that was really helpful. I have a son, Mac, who you've met many times, and I just really want to be as healthy as I can so that I can celebrate all of his milestones, his graduations and a wedding, and maybe someday even hold my own grandchildren. So that is my motivating factor, and all the sort of sacrifices to make that happen just feel so worth it because I have these big plans for my life.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And I have to believe that, what you mentioned about your doctor and how your parents handled that situation initially, and then that approach to those how you take on your day-to-day activities for that overall goal is I have to believe where that comes from. And yeah, that's awesome to hear. So how long again has it been since you've been in isolation here?
340 days.
Like a prison sentence. 340 days.
Yeah, I haven't been to any public places. I mean, I'll like go for walks in the Metro Park, but outside, but I haven't been indoors.
Are you skateboarding still?
I'm definitely skateboarding. I've like actually taken up a lot of different hobbies. Like I've been playing a lot of street hockey in my driveway and snowshoeing and running and just all sorts of outdoor activities to keep me sane.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's always interesting to hear how people are tackling the isolation from a fitness standpoint. Like, and I love picking up the new activities, especially since you're so socially, you're not as connected. So you got to find new challenges to challenge your brain, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So let's dive into the mental toughness side. Can you, from a coaching standpoint, obviously you had strategies for how you taught your girls to attack challenges and attack game plans in the season. What do you do from a mental toughness side now when you're working with clients? Because you're still working with both athletes and adults on kind of this mental toughness program.
Yeah, so I mean, I think really my whole life has been practicing mental toughness. I just didn't have a word for it or an idea about really what it was. But, everyone faces challenges. And when you're living with chronic illness, you have a lot of challenges. And so I sort of have always tried to turn to hope, just even from the very beginning. But I didn't really have a word or an idea of what mental toughness was. So when I was a coach in Chagrin, I had a great team. They were really excellent lacrosse players, and we had this wonderful team culture. But we just in some big games, I noticed that some of my players would shut down when the game was on the line. Not that they stopped playing, but they sort of stopped believing in their own abilities. And I wanted to learn more about what I could do as a coach to give them something to turn to so that they could believe in themselves even when the game was on the line or if they were having a bad game. And so I dove into figuring out what that would be. And that's when I discovered mental toughness. So I read a ton of books and I listened to podcasts and videos, and I interviewed professional athletes and business executives and other people living with chronic illness. I just wanted to understand what they had learned over time about being the best that they could be, especially under pressure. And so then my last season of coaching, I implemented a mental toughness program with my lacrosse team. And I was actually really blown away by the results. I didn't really know what would happen, but I figured it wouldn't hurt. But I just noticed that my players just had more confidence in their own abilities, and also had something to turn to themselves. Like they didn't necessarily need me to build them up. Like they could do it themselves, and that was a huge thing to see coming out of that season. And so then I retired, as I said, and I took time to build my body back up. And I realized that I had retired as a lacrosse coach, but I could start a career as a mental toughness coach. And so then I, learned even more and have started working with people of all ages on mental toughness. And it's been really amazing to watch people claim their own strengths and to be able to use them when they are trying to accomplish a goal or overcome a challenge.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the whole idea. I always thought that if I didn't get into physical therapy, I thought sports psychology would be a fascinating career. Because, as an athlete in high school, like I can remember times where I felt like I just wasn't playing well, and things that you've done a million times, and then in a high pressure situation or, just a game where you're thinking about stuff, you don't play well. You miss a shot you've made millions of times or whatever it is. And what is that mechanism? And you get a taste of it in exercise science. We talk about, optimal, kind of that optimal arousal period of if somebody's a kind of a slow starter of an athlete, or they're a little more depressed, you got to kind of ramp them up. And then people that get too hyped, you got to bring them down and try to get into that sweet spot. But then you get into the nitty gritties of confidence and the zone and what it's doing from an autonomic state, and how do you do that? And on top of that, now in with business and things I'm doing that way, you run into the same stuff, right? You're making decisions, you're having to think of what's the next step, the next plan. And so, it's not high school sports, but
Right.
the same principles, you can feel them happening. So what do you, when you're going to work with an athlete or you're going to work with an adult, how do you get started? Like, what are the things you're looking for, and what's that first step?
Yeah, I mean, first it's just to listen and figure out like what are they hoping to get out of like their life in general, but also if they have a specific thing that they're trying to accomplish, and to find out what they think is getting in their way. And people are usually know they know exactly like what the hang up is. They just don't know how to get past it. And so that's really helpful, just to set the stage of like where that person is and where they want to go. And then the next step is really to understand what their strengths are. And there's a survey you can take, but also people also know what their strengths are. And once you can claim those like character strengths, then you can use them in creative ways to help you accomplish your goal or overcome obstacles. And it's like finding out your strengths and using them is like fascinating for each person. But it also, when you're using these signature character strengths, there's 24 of them, and these have been studied by positive psychologists, and like they've studied all of these strengths, and they wanted them to be able to cross culture and cross time. So they looked at like, you know, even like historical documents and religious documents, and they interviewed people like all over to find out what are these character strengths that are just universal for all humans. And they came up with 24 of them, and every single person has access to all 24 strengths, but each person has their 5 signature strengths, and those are the ones that just come naturally to each person. So when you understand what your strengths are, then you can use them in important ways. So as an example, one of my character strengths is perspective. And that has been extremely useful for me to use, obviously, especially during this time when everything is like, you know, I haven't left my house and feels like, you know, the world is shut down, and, you know, I could have just, I don't know, decide to put my life on pause. But I had this perspective to say, okay, like, this is not what I expected, but I have this time. Like, my life, this is my life. Like, it's not on pause. Like, this is it. This is what you get right now. And so to have that perspective, to think of it as just a different chance to try to work towards my goals without having, I guess, all the distractions of the outside world. And once I realized that, I was able to actually do a lot of amazing things this year that I'm really proud of, and grateful that I had that opportunity, and I might not have done them without COVID. So turning to that strength of perspective just allowed me to move forward during this time when, you know, I wasn't sure what my year was going to look like.
That's really cool. So this list of 24, is this published somewhere? Like,
yeah, so you can go to this, it's called the VIA Character Institute, and you can just Google that, and there's a lot of information on those strengths. And you can take a survey to find out what your strengths are. And but then it's really helpful to talk to someone about, okay, like, I found out my strengths, but like, what do I do with them?
yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question. Like, okay, so your strength is perspective, and making those decisions, and making the decision to look at it from that approach is what makes you so successful. But on the flip side of the coin, I feel like people that struggle mentally or making decisions, they have trouble getting their head into that space. How do you help someone kind of circle back, or step back and look at it from the outside?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a learning process. Like, I'd like to say that anytime I am hit with like something that's hard, I'm like, oh, don't worry, like I'll just turn to my perspective, right?
Right,
I
right.
mean, you go through like all of the same emotions, like, grief maybe, or anger or sadness or any of those. I still feel all of those, but I now have a way out, and that has been really helpful for me. So if I'm talking to someone about their strengths, and once they know what they are, like it takes a little while to really claim them, but it's helpful to just know what you're claiming. And then it's a process, and once eventually, like once you get comfortable with it, then you can turn to it yourself, and you're like, oh, okay, like what if I used hope in this situation? Or what if I used humor in this situation? Could that make it better? And the research shows that when people are using their signature character strengths, they're 17 times more likely to flourish. Like it is like leads to well-being, just across the board and everything that you're doing.
Yeah, it makes me think of like, I feel like now like business is kind of the thing that gives me the most struggle, right? And I know I need to step back and look at it. And I almost feel like I've screwed up enough times now that it's kind of like, if I mess up again, it's like, yeah, all right, I've been there, I've done that. Okay, let's circle back and try to fix that problem. And maybe I can handle it better. It'd be interesting to add the character strength piece to that. Just the kind of, when you step back and you go, all right, look, you've done this before, you're going to get through it and we're going to move on. But it might give you just a different filter, a different lens to approach that. A different perspective maybe to look at it would be kind of a cool approach that would be interesting to try. So I'm definitely going to have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely do. It's great. And then the other part of mental toughness that I've found really useful is having a mental toughness practice. And so there's a practice that was created by a sports psychologist. His name's Jason Selk, and he has worked with so many professional teams and elite athletes. And there's a book called 10 Minutes, 10 Minutes of Mental Toughness. And so that practice has been really helpful for me and for everyone I've taught it to. What's interesting about this practice is that it was created for athletes, but I use it in every aspect of my life. So if like I have to make a presentation, or I have like a hard phone call I have to make, those ones you're just like, oh, you're just dreading it, you can turn to this mental toughness practice. I've used it when I've had to get medical procedures. And then I've also used it, when I have like a really tough CrossFit workout and I'm nervous about it, or if I'm, trying to work towards my bigger goals, I can turn to this practice. And
What's
it's
an
been really,
example? Like, what's an example of this practice, or what's a component of it?
well, there's several components, but it's made up of like strong statements about yourself, like strong, like personal statements about your abilities and your strengths. And then there's a whole component of a highlight reel where you visualize past successes that you've had, like in this particular area that you're trying to accomplish. And then you also visualize yourself like doing the thing that you're about to do, and in as much detail as possible. And what's interesting is your brain doesn't know the difference between an actual experience and a visualized experience. So you really, all you're doing is telling your brain, like, yeah, you can do this. Like you just did it, because your brain doesn't know that it hasn't actually happened yet.
Yeah, I've seen some of the visualization literature from even like downhill skiers. They can visualize the course, and through visualization, they can actually see that the right muscles activate with the right timing of what that course looks like. So you can kind of go through that rehearsal. And I'm not as familiar with the research from a physical aspect, or a mental aspect, I should say, but I'm sure it's very similar.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's been, so then when you like go into whatever you're doing, you already have built a little bit of confidence because you just did it.
Right.
And so you know it's possible.
That's pretty cool. Is there, So some of the things that I've seen involve mantras in different things. Do you do anything with mantras specifically?
Well, this personal statement, and there's also a performance statement. Those can be mantras that you use. But I definitely think mantras are really useful, especially if you have one that really matters to you. I think what I've learned most about working with people in the last, several years is that I think sometimes when you are struggling to like accomplish something that you've set out to do, a lot of times when you struggle, it's because you're not picking the right goal. Like you're picking one that you think you should do, or other people think you should do, but it's not necessarily like what you want to do. And what I've noticed is when people pick goals because they feel like they should, or they're told they should, it's really hard to stay on track with that. But when you pick something that truly matters to you, it's so much easier to get through like all the obstacles and ups and downs because it truly matters to you. So I think that's something I've really picked up in the last few years.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. So, I think of the goals that I see in physical therapy practice. You want to get out of pain is one of those goals, or from a exercise standpoint, maybe you want to get more fit, you want to lose weight, whatever. When you say you're picking the wrong goal, is it literally like, do you mean literally change that entirely? Or is there a component of that is just like change the focus of it? Like we talk all the time, pain is pain, right? Everybody wants to be out of pain, but what does that mean to get out of pain? Let me shimmy the goal to that direction. And then all of a sudden, maybe pain isn't, even part of that. So for example, yeah, my back hurts, but really what it really means is I can't go play with my dog.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal shifts to what do I need to do to be able to play with my daughter? The pain stuff will take care of itself. So I know in goal setting, we do a lot of that. What are you referring to specifically?
Well, I think that is exactly it, right? Like, I mean, it could be that, like, let's say you have an athlete who plays a high school sport or something like that, and they're injured, and like the goal that their coaches or their parents have is like to get them better so they can get back to that sport. Okay, maybe they don't want to get back to that sport, right? But they can't admit it, or they don't even know that really for themselves. So the rehab is just going to go so much slower because they don't have that intrinsic motivation to get better. And so I think those times of crisis in people's lives, like whether it's an injury or, I mean, there's so many different ways, it's actually a really good opportunity to take a step back and say, what do I actually want? Like, what can I learn from this moment of hardship that will help me like either come back to the same thing? Maybe you're like, okay, what I learned is when I'm not able to do this one thing because of an injury, like I miss it so much I can barely breathe, right? Like it matters that much to me. And that's a really amazing thing to learn. So then you can use that to give everything you have to getting better and doing all the exercises in between appointments and making sure you're getting the rest that you need and all the things that it takes to get better. But if you're not doing those things and you just don't feel like you're motivated to do those things, it might be interesting to take a step back and say, what's holding me back? Like, why am I resistant to that? And once you sort of ask those questions, you can learn a lot, and maybe learn something different. Say actually, like what I've loved about this time, because I have extra time because I'm not able to do this one thing, I've really learned that I love doing this other thing, and maybe that's where I want to put my interest. So I think that's part of it. It's just when you have something that like changes your day or changes your life in a particular way, to really step back and say, like, what am I learning from this?
That's interesting. I've been in spots like that, right? Where you're struggling with something and then you're evaluating it. You're like, well, do I even want to do this? And then my next step is, well, do I not want to do it, or am I just being a wimp and this is my easy out, right? Like I don't want to put in the work to get there. So now I'm trying to change my goal, but then I feel like I'm cheating.
Yeah, but that's what I wonder about. Like, if you really wanted to do it, like you wouldn't
Cheat. You wouldn't.
No, because it matters that much to you. Now there's certain things you have to do, right? Like I mean, just the way our life is set up, there's things like like, have to earn a living, or you have to make sure you have food and all of those things. So there's certain things that you do have to just like gut it up and get through. And that's like a whole nother element of mental toughness. But if there's, if you do have choices, then it's useful to really understand, like, where do you want to put your time?
Right. So for me, those things a lot of times are like remedial tasks, like documentation. I hate taking notes. Even like the numbers and stuff that you have to do for a business. I've listened to some of the stuff from Jocko. Jocko's got a book called Extreme Ownership. And basically he's like, take ownership of doing those notes and do them the best you could possibly ever do them, and kind of just you have to do it, right? It's part of the game. What advice do you give for those things? Even if it's an athlete, like you tell them you have to do this exercise, or you have to do lacrosse ball, you have to do wall ball for 20 minutes a day. They don't want to do that. They just want to play.
Right.
What advice do you give for those tasks that are going to be beneficial for your end goal, but you just feel like you don't want to do them?
Well, that's where the mental toughness practice really comes into play, because when you sort of have your idea of where you want to go, that's the first part. You have to, be able to set the goals that matter to you, and also talk about the risks that happen. Like if you are working towards a goal and you always get hung up when someone distracts you, like your phone rings, or you get distracted by the TV or whatever it is, like, that's a risk to your success. And so if you can understand what those risks are, then you can mitigate them a little bit. I mean, you can't take all risk off the table, but if your phone is a huge distraction, well, then turn it off when you're doing that particular task. But then also the mental toughness practice just helps you like visualize like where you're going and what matters to you. So if you can always have that sort of ultimate goal in your mind, then those like smaller tasks like are leading to something that really matters to you, and that can keep you more motivated. I know that's been really useful for me, because I have these big plans for my life to be able to live long enough to see my son graduate and hold my own grandchildren, and it's going to take a lot of work to get there. I mean, so many daily treatments, and I need to exercise every day so that I can keep my lungs healthy. And there's like days when I feel awful and I don't want to do it, but I know why I'm doing it, and it matters to me more than anything. And so if I can continually turn to that ultimate goal, then it makes those tasks just less painful, because I know it's leading somewhere, and that keeps me motivated.
Do you have drills or something that you do to practice that? Like I'm thinking of this, there's a speech. He was a graduation speech, and I forget, he was a member of the service, and he was talking about making his bed, and it went viral on YouTube and stuff. And basically, like, you don't make your bed because it makes sense. You make your bed because you're winning that first step of the day, or waking up to your alarm first thing in the morning. Like you make that decision if you want to hit the snooze button or you want to just get up that morning, and that's your first victory of the day. Do you recommend any drills or things to kind of help people practice, or is it more just rationalizing it?
Yeah, I mean, I've read those things too, and I'm someone who never makes my bed, so I'm sort of like,
Yeah.
But I mean, I do see the importance of it, and it's really helpful to have little wins along the way. And so maybe you pick something that matters more to you as your win. I guess like for me, my win every day is taking my medication, right? Like, because that is what keeps me going. But for others, a win might be something totally different, like connecting with someone else, or like checking off like at least one box on your to-do list. So I think there's a lot. I think little wins along the way absolutely keep you motivated. But this, I think it's just more of like the knowledge of where you're going, and why you want it, why it matters to you, and what you have already that you can claim to help you get there. And it's different for every person. So I think one of the interesting things about these character strengths is so this comes out of University of Pennsylvania, and there's a Penn resiliency training program that they do with all sorts of organizations, but one of them is the US Army. And so they had everyone all the new cadets take this survey, this character survey. And what was fascinating is if you were going to guess, like, what would be the character strength that would be most common among cadets in the Army, if you're just going to guess.
Some kind of pride or
or like
or something like that,
or something like that, right?
What's that?
Bravery or something like that. Okay, so the number one character strength among cadets is actually love, and which is fascinating, but it makes sense because you cannot be a good cadet if you don't like love your other cadets, because you wouldn't be willing to die for them. And so I think it's just fascinating to learn those, because the ones that you can claim, you might not understand exactly in the moment how you can turn to them, but you can get creative to think about, okay, like if love is one of my character strengths, how can I use love to help me accomplish this goal? Well, I love my family so much, and it matters that I can accomplish this goal because it means that I can provide a better life. Or if, I'm injured, it means like I can play with my daughter. And to turn to love is like, you wouldn't necessarily think to turn to that to accomplish a goal, but it's amazing how these strengths can help you get to where you want to go.
Yeah, that example makes perfect sense to me. And again, it's that lens of taking on that perspective. And that mental flip, like I've experienced it myself, where you're just like in a bad mood about something, and then you just change the way you're thinking about it, and all of a sudden you're like motivated again.
Yeah.
This task guy. Why do you think, changing gears a little bit here, I guess, why do you think this idea of mental toughness, I think it's starting to happen, but why do you think it's not in the public? Why is it not part of mainstream education or coaching? The mental side of the game, especially as I get older, I feel like is more important than anything, because if you're not mentally disciplined, the physical, like, you don't get stronger because you skip workouts or you quit or whatever. Why do you think we're not seeing more of that? Or maybe we are now, and
it's definitely a growing field. I think you're starting to see mental toughness coaches or mental performance coaches or sports psychologists at a lot of professional teams. And I'm actually a mental toughness coach for a high school football team at university school. And I feel so lucky to have that opportunity to be on that staff. And I think it's been really helpful for the players, but also the coaches, to really understand the mental side. I think it's just, honestly, like when you're trying, let's like just take high school sports or any sports, like there's just so many things you have to do to get better. Like there's strength, there's speed, there's agility, there's skill, all of those things. And then there's like game strategy. So I think for a lot of coaches, it's like, there's no time, right? Like we can barely get through what we need to do. But what I learned as a high school coach is like, it's the most valuable thing I could have done, right? It took like 5 minutes a day. Didn't even actually take that long to do this practice. And it made like a bigger difference than like spending 5 minutes like running sprints or whatever. So I think it's really just that it's not out there as much, that it's like not what you're taught right away. If you want to get good at a sport, like you do the reps and do 10,000 hours. But really, if you put in those 10,000 hours to the mental work. So what's also interesting is 1 minute of visualization is equal to 7 minutes of physical practice. So if you visualize yourself doing something, it's like as useful as 7 minutes of doing that same thing. So it actually is like so useful, and it's simple. And I'm hoping it will take off even more as people discover it.
Yeah, I think you're seeing more mainstream athletes do it as well. Like you're hearing that stuff now. And maybe it is like everybody wants to be that clutch athlete. So to talk about the fact that you're struggling with the mental side of the game, maybe that's why you don't see it as much.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I've also discovered is like vulnerability is a path to mental toughness. And it's hard to be vulnerable, but it is like where you start, because you can't really understand where you're going unless you really dig deep to find out like what you want and what's holding you back. And once you can sort of really like talk about those things or understand those things for yourself, then there's a path forward. But until you do that, it's hard to make progress, and it's hard to be vulnerable.
So how do you get a high school football player into that mindset? Because I got
Well,
to imagine that's got to be a challenge.
I have an amazing head coach, and he's all in. And they will follow him to the ends of the earth. So that was really helpful. But I think, I don't know. I mean, like, football players are people, right? Like, they're not different. They just have a passion for a game. You have to be really tough to play. But I think they were glad to have something to turn to, and they didn't have to sort of pretend that they never were worried on the sidelines or in the game.
That's interesting. It almost gives them you don't have anxiety about being worried, right? Because this is normal. We've been here before. We've played.
Yeah, we have a plan. We have something to turn to.
Yeah.
And it's not foolproof. I'm not saying like you do this mental toughness practice and like you never have anxiety again, right? That's not like, but you do have something to turn to in the moment, and that has been really helpful.
So are they implementing it as part of like a daily practice? Is it just check-ins? What are you guys doing specifically?
Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure what they did this year, because I couldn't really be with the team, which was sad. But I'm hoping
Zooming mental toughness sessions.
Yeah, I mean, it just last year was so crazy. I mean, the fact that they even had football was kind of a miracle, and I think coaches were just like trying to get their team on the field. But the year before, yeah, we would do the mental toughness practice before every practice and every game. And then on Saturdays, or the day after a game, so if we played Friday, it was Saturday. If we played on Saturday, then we did it on Monday. We had like a notebook, and the boys would talk about like what went well this week, what do they want to, what's their intention for the upcoming week, like what was getting in their way, and just have a sense, just like a timeout to say like, okay, like here's where we are. I feel really good about this. I want to continue to do this. But in this part of my game, like I know I need to dig a little deeper. And once you could say that, then the coaches could help, right? Because they understood like where the players were confused or where they felt like they needed more guidance. So it was really helpful to the coaches as well to have just a better sense of where their players were and what they needed to focus on that week.
Yeah, I mean, having an idea of what your players are thinking and where their headspace is at, that's tough to communicate for a lot of people. But if you had this process in place, here it is right in front of you, everybody's doing it, you can obviously see the advantages of that setup.
Yeah, and like I would look through like their notebooks and then report back to the coaches to be like, okay, so like many people on the offensive line like are struggling with this particular like play. And so they were like, oh, okay, like that's good to know. Whereas they might not have known that otherwise.
I do not check in.
Yeah.
How do we, so, obviously you got the high school athlete approach to that, but as an adult, you got the same problems, right? You got 10,000 things you need to do. You're taking care of your family. You got to go to work. You got to, this and that. How do we implement that or transition that to the adult world?
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. I mean, instead of like maybe trying to win a state championship, like you're trying to get a promotion at work, or, you can have athletic goals as well. Like you're trying to run a 5K, or trying to, get a PR in CrossFit or whatever it is. And so it's sort of the same process, like figuring out what you want, and then finding out in yourself, like what you can use to help accomplish those goals. And then you can have the same exact practice. So you can have your mental toughness practice that you do before you go to sleep at night, or when you wake up, or right before you're doing whatever thing that you're hoping to do well at. And then you can have that same journal where you talk about, this went really well today. This didn't go as well, but I'm going to set my intention for tomorrow. Like, this is my focus. And it can be really simplistic. It doesn't have to be like pages of journaling. It's just like a couple notes, like, here's the priorities for tomorrow. And the other thing I think that's been really useful, or I know is useful, is to write down just moments of gratitude each day. And that can help so much with well-being and mental toughness. Because I think when life is stressful, you sort of get this like idea that like everything is hard, right? But actually there's all these moments of joy and grace in every day. And so to really claim those and write them down is a really, really helpful practice. So I did that all this year when I was, in quarantine. And it was actually amazing how easy it was. Like, I would think that it would be so hard because I like never saw anyone and I didn't go anywhere. But every day I had things that I was so grateful for. And, some of it was like simple, like, I have a house, like, that's pretty amazing. Or the sun was out today, or I talked to this one friend, or my lungs felt good today. And once I wrote those down, I just felt like I was surrounded by all this good. And then at the end of the year, I actually put all of them into a word cloud, like all the things that I wrote down. And so then I had this amazing visual of like all the good in my life. And yeah, I like sort of treasure that image. It's something I can go back to if I'm having a hard day. Say like, yes, like, this is hard. I'm not like in denial about how hard it is, but I do have amazing resources to turn to. I have wonderful people in my life. I have things that matter to me. And that's just been really useful.
That's a really cool idea. I love the visual aspect of that too, with the word cloud and just having something to look at and reference. And it's personalized. So, you think of, like, I think back to like high school weight rooms, and you got all those sayings on the walls, or the PT clinics got motivational quotes. What a positive image that would be to be able to reference to.
Yeah.
And I know personally, you get so wrapped up in your goals, like, I want to accomplish this, I want to do this, I want to do that, that you never take a second to go, well, wait, I know I haven't accomplished X, Y, Z, but there's a lot of good stuff happening along the way. And I struggle with that personally. Like, I've never step back and go, all right, yeah, because I'm always hard on myself. There's always this next step that you got to do. I don't often spend the time to go, things are all right. We're not
Yeah.
in the
Yeah. I
scheme of the
think,
world, we're doing okay.
yeah, it's been a really useful practice for me. And it's a way to turn towards hope. I had this a doctor when I was a kid, and she talked about how when you're dealing with chronic illness or dealing with CF, like, you can be in a place of denial where you're just sort of like, I'm fine, like, and that's not helpful at all. But it feels helpful in the moment because you can sort of like pretend it's not happening. And I think this is like, happens to everyone, right? If there's something that's not going well or is hard, it's really easy to turn to denial. And then the other place that you could go is despair, to feel like, I'll never be able to do this, or everything is against me, or just feeling that just place of like despair. But in the middle of those two is hope. And that has been really helpful for my life, to just choose hope over and over again, to recognize what's true, like, so not to be in denial about the hardships of it, but also not to feel like there's no way forward. And anytime you can turn to the hope in the situation, like, that's your path forward.
What a strong skill, like, to be able to do that. I mean, I know a lot of people, and we talk about despair, and I know a lot of people, myself included, when you face a challenge or something happens that you don't expect, it's really easy to like steamroll it or snowball it.
Yeah.
This happened, and so now that's going to happen. Now that's going to happen. Now that's going to happen. And before this whole thing's over, you're at the, there's nowhere else to go, kind of a thing. How do you, like, is there a strategy to stop that? I mean, I love what you just said there about hope, but it's so easy to kind of do that thing where one path to the next. What do you tell people?
Yeah, so this is like very common. So there's these thinking traps that your brain takes you down. And the one you were describing is like catastrophizing. So like one thing happens, like small things happens, and all of a sudden like your brain takes you to like you're going to be living on the streets, you
Right.
know? It's just like insane. You're like, wait, no, it just meant I ran out of gas. Like this is insane. But your brain like takes you there, and you can't if you don't recognize that thinking trap, like you'll go with it. You're like, okay, here I am, like I'm about to live on the streets. So once you recognize that you're catastrophizing a situation, then you can stop it in real time, and you can say, well, that's not true because, and give like a really concrete example of like, okay, like, yes, this went wrong, but like it's not going to lead to all of these things because that's not true. This has happened before and it actually worked out totally fine. So just like to stop your thinking in its tracks. And then the other thing you can do is if you sort of anticipate, sometimes you know when things might not quite go well, or there's like, you know, like just like a stupid example is like if you get like really anxious about like getting to the airport on time, right, and missing your flight, and then if you miss your flight, like you won't get the connecting flight, and then you'll miss this thing that's really important to you, and like so you can go on all these, you know, different paths, but like you can have contingency plans in place. You can say like, well, like if there's a lot of traffic around this time, like I'll leave earlier, or like if you can even like if you want to like look at, okay, well, like if I miss this flight, there's another one in an hour, so like it's gonna be okay. Like I'll, you know, so just you can sort of have these contingency plans in place, like if X happens then I will Y, and it can, you can have it ahead of time so that if you get to those like, you know, places of hardship, you already have a plan, and so then you don't catastrophize in the same way because you know what to do.
Yeah, kind of a backup to the backup plan, so to speak. That's,
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like the hardest one, like for me, when you kind of get in that path, the hardest times to stop it are when you feel like you don't know the answer to why something might have happened, or um, you can't rationalize it because there's just no way to know the answer, and
Right.
that creates the problem. But you know, you just got to reflect back to previous experiences and times things maybe similar have happened. But
Yeah.
those are the hard ones. Is maybe there isn't an answer to understand why X happened, and then how do you keep yourself from steamrolling that? I, I've never tried the backup strategy, but
Yeah, I mean, I think like sure, like there's things that like you can't say, you know, the exact answer why, but you can say like, well, like you can't like the worst case scenario, like you can usually say, well, that's not true because like
right,
I like can call someone, or I have like an extra $20 in my wallet or whatever it is. Like there's just ways in which there is usually is a way forward in some ways, and then if there's not, like then that's where you turn to hope to say, okay, like I don't know how this is going to work out, but like it's something's going to happen, like I'm going to learn something from this, or um, I will, you know, figure my way through it because I've dealt with really hard things in the past and it wasn't easy and it was awful and I hated every second, but I did it, like, and it did work out in this particular way, not maybe the way I wanted it to, but something came out of it. Like you learned something, or you found a different door to open that you didn't even know existed. And I think like the example in my life is I was so devastated about having to retire from coaching, but it led me to this path of mental toughness, which has been so extraordinarily useful for me. And so, you know, I'm going to hit another hardship and I'm going to say, okay, well, what's going to come from this? Like maybe something even better that I didn't even know to dream about.
yeah, it sets you up for new opportunities. And I love the what did you learn from it kind of approach, and that's what I try to do as best I can. Like maybe you didn't something didn't happen the way you want, but you learned a lot along the way, wasted some time maybe, and maybe some money and whatever, but
Yeah.
there's lessons to be learned, and hopefully you don't make those same mistakes twice, or you can do it better the next time. And I have examples of that time and time again with business especially, but you know,
Yeah.
relationships and life and everything else. There's those stories. So
But it's not that you won't grieve it or that it won't be hard or you won't be frustrated or you won't be mad. Like mental toughness doesn't erase those feelings. It just helps you have something to turn to give you a path forward. And that's why it's been, I think, so useful for me. So it's not a tool for denial,
Right.
but it's a tool for hope in those moments of despair.
Right. Almost accept the fact that that's going to happen, kind of is how
Yeah.
I like those emotions and that reality is expected. It's going to happen. We want it to, but how do we handle it? That's great stuff. That's awesome. What I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, like, have you used any of this in the CF community? Like, are
Yeah,
you
a little bit. There's a international wellness platform for people with CF. It's called Beam, and they have all sorts of exercise programs. It's actually pretty amazing because I've worked out with people with CF from the UK and from Australia and from all over the United States this past year. And it's just been amazing to meet people around the world. So I did a couple mental toughness workshops through Beam. And then I've worked with some people with CF too on their own mental toughness. And I actually learned being a mental toughness coach has just given me so much toughness because I learn how other people deal with their hardships. And I always learn something from talking to someone else that I've been able to apply in my own life as well. And the CF community, I mean, the amount of mental toughness in that community is like astounding. So many times, we've had to sort of dig deep and move forward in really hard circumstances. But there's been wins along the way as well. And there was actually a drug that was approved by the FDA in November of 2019. And this drug fixes the basic defect in the cells of the lungs of many people in the CF population. So I started that drug in November of 2019, and it's actually like made such a difference. I mean,
I remember that was
yeah.
game changer stuff.
And very quickly, like
Okay.
within even a couple weeks. And that was sort of like the hope that my doctor who diagnosed me and talked about in 1982, that like there is research coming. And so just, living long enough to benefit from that drug is sort of, it's all come full circle in a way. And it doesn't mean I don't have CF. Like I still have all the treatments and I still obviously have to be super careful, especially now in COVID. And, we don't know what the future will bring, but it's really taught me a lot about hope, and that like it's worth it. It's worth it to just keep grinding because like something will happen, and it may not be what you expected, but it will be something that is beautiful and amazing, and you just gotta like keep moving forward for that moment because it will happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I feel like that's a great place to wrap up. Hopefully we get together here again soon. And
Yes, I know. Well, once I get my second vaccine and wait a couple weeks after that, um, and maybe able to venture out just a little bit more. So I definitely miss coming to PT. I just am in so much more pain than I was, and it's really, I miss it every day.
from the physical therapy side, it's always been interesting to see how well you respond to some of the things. And I remember when you were doing the trials, we were doing like rib mobilizations or your pulmonary function tests, and we were seeing cool stuff and changes. And yeah, learned a lot along the way there too. But hopefully soon enough.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for Zoom, because people probably don't know this, but I've learned it from you. People with CF aren't actually allowed near each other. So you can't even, like unrelated to COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, people with CF have different bacteria in their lungs. And so if we're in the same room, we could potentially give bacteria to each other and then become sicker. So people with CF have been socially distancing for a really long time. We're like experts at it. And so it poses this really tough challenge that the people who most understand your life are dangerous to your health. So we've been using Zoom and other video platforms to communicate for years. I actually helped start a international virtual conference for people with CF. We started it 5 years ago with two of my really good friends with CF who I've actually never met in person, but I talk to every single day. I consider them like some of my dearest and closest friends. And maybe someday we'll be able to meet like in masks and far away. One lives in Utah and one lives in Louisiana. So, but I've learned over time that you can create really, really meaningful friendships, even through video conferencing and Zoom. And so it's a sort of like business as usual in a sense for me this year, because I'm so used to having lots of connection through virtual platforms.
Yeah, you've been preparing for it in many ways.
Yes, I've been training my whole life for this.
Right. Flu season is basically, normal flu season is what we're all doing for you now, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I will be so glad to, be able to see people in person again. I do think physical presence matters. It really does. But I'm grateful that I already knew going into this time that you can make really meaningful friendships through virtual platforms. That was a good lesson to already have going into this year.
Yeah. The rest of us have been trying to learn on the fly.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, where can people find out more if they want to do something with your mental toughness? And then also, I know you do a lot of work with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. Where can people find more about that?
Yeah, so my Instagram is at Brave Like You, and the U is just the letter U, not Y-O-U. So that's the name of my mental toughness coaching business, because like I said, I've learned so much from other people, and I want to be brave just like they are as they're trying to accomplish their goals and overcome their obstacles. So that's why I thought Brave Like You is perfect, because that's what I want to be. I want to be brave like all the people that I come into contact with. So that's my Instagram, and then I can be reached through that. And then the CF Foundation, it's such an amazing foundation. I'm so grateful for it. It's actually the reason I'm alive today. They've funded so many important research projects, and we're not done. Like Trikafta, the drug I just started, has made a huge difference, but we have more to do. And our ultimate goal is to find the cure for every person with CF. So their website is cff.org, and there's a lot of amazing information about the foundation on that website. And it's an organization, like it's a winner. Like we are gonna accomplish this goal, and anyone who's a part of it over sort of even the last like decades, right? Anyone who's like been to an event or donated, like they will be part of that team that is going to cure this disease. And I feel so blessed, because I'm alive today because of the generosity of others, and it's a pretty amazing way to move through life, knowing that you have all these people who are behind you and helping you live your best life.
Yeah. You can see real quick where the mental toughness side of your mindset comes from. You guys always have cool events, like we used to do the stuff at the gym there, but
yeah. My favorite one these days is called Rose Up, because when kids are little, they can't say cystic fibrosis, so they say 65 roses. So the rose has become like our symbol, but this idea of Rose Up, and that's an event that will happen in September. And what's amazing about it is it's a virtual event, so you can do whatever you want to Rose Up for CF, and information about Rose Up will be on the foundation website in the next coming months. But like, for example, you could go fishing to Rose Up for, yeah, so you can do whatever you're passionate about. And
does that mean I have to catch 65 fish?
You can. That would be an amazing goal.
Okay.
Over time, you could. Do you think you could catch 65 in a season?
Nowadays, probably not.
Well, now you have something to work towards, right?
There's my new goal.
Yeah, exactly.
My wife will not agree with that goal.
Oh, I don't know. She can come up with her own way to Rose Up. Right. And then she can be like, sorry, I got to go do this to Rose Up.
Right. We can use that excuse both ways.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's probably a time where I got out enough to do that. I don't know anymore. Maybe.
Maybe. Well, think about
Make
it.
it a priority.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, Casey. Well, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch again soon, hopefully in person, but if not, we'll stay in touch this way.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was so much fun to talk to you.
For sure.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.